All right, let's talk Browns. Hello, everyone. I am Asante Bay, your host of Raw Dogs Radio, and let's talk about building the Cleveland Browns. Now, I didn't do a review show on the last two preseason games because I was in the middle of moving. Those of you who actually follow my videos, if you look at the last video before this, as you can see, totally different background. I've moved. Um, but here's what we need for those of us who are Browns fans, who are actually diehard Browns fans, to understand. Now, oops, sorry, didn't know that was in a shot. uh, I'm an old school Browns fan. I grew up Browns. I remember Brian Sipe. I remember watching him play. I remember Red Right 88. That's right. I love Christian Kirksey. That guy's a baller. Be interested to see what he does this year. Um, I remember Red Right 88. I remember how that broke my family's heart because that was a family tradition. We would all get together and sit around and watch the Browns on Sundays, and we would live and die by the Browns. Remember when Eric Turner died? I remember the Marty Schottenheimer years where he never should have been fired and replaced with Bud Carson. I remember the heartbreak of watching John Elway go 98 yards on us, and then the garbage Rich Carlos field goal. I remember the fumble with Ernest Biner, which really destroyed me. And I remember the hope and then the agony of suffering defeat. No, it wasn't the following year, but it was the year after under Bud Carson, where the Browns went to Denver and they lost. I mean, Brian Sipe, no, I'm sorry, not Brian Sipe, Brian Brennan made the great acrobatic catch in the back of the end zone. I remember I was at work with my then best friend, and we were hugging each other, jumping up and down, talking about some how the Browns were going to the Super Bowl because they cut the lead down to three. And then John Elway did some typical John Elway-esque stuff, and we lost the game. Uh, I remember all of that. I remember 1990, where they couldn't win a game, but yet they were going up against the world champion, two-time defending world champion 49ers, who had a 17 to a 3 halftime lead. And then the Browns fought back. Webster Slaughter took the big shot from Ronnie Lott over the middle. Webster Slaughter, he jumped up and was like, like it was nothing. Of course, they showed him on the sideline adjusting the pads in his helmet. But the simple fact was he took the shot from Ronnie Lott and survived, and that fired up the team. And I remember I'm sorry, not Ronnie Lott, Ozzie Newsome making a diving catch in the back corner of the end zone when he should have retired the year prior. Okay. Making the catch in the end zone to tie the game. And of course, Joe Montana doing Joe Montana-esque stuff. All right. And they kicked the field goal. Mike Cofer kicked the field goal to win, even though he was struggling. I remember all of that because actually 1990 was the last year that I actually gave a damn about what the Browns were doing before they wound up moving. Now, of course, when they came back, I kind of paid attention with the whole Carmen policy, the White Clark situation. And let's be honest, those guys didn't know what they were doing. Bill Walsh orchestrated all of that. They were just peons. They didn't know what they were doing. That was all Eddie DeBartolo and Bill Walsh. George Seifert, of course, I mean, he did what he did, but that was at the height of free agency. Like when he won in '89 with the Niners, that was really Bill Walsh's team. And then when he won in '94, that was a free agency superstar laden team built to beat the Cowboys, which I'll touch on. And then that was it until the 49ers hired Jim Harbaugh, and that was a whole different story. But this isn't about the Niners, but it is in a sense tied in between the Niners and Cowboys and this current Browns scene. Now, let's talk about what Hugh Jackson is doing and how it ties in into building a champion, a dynasty really, with the 49ers and the Cowboys. And let's start with the original dynasty. I mean, I can take it back to the Steelers with Chuck Noll, but Chuck Noll, all he did was just draft his way into it. All right, he just steadily drafted, steadily drafted, steadily drafted. And in all honesty, that's how you build a winner. When you suck, you get the top picks. And after 3 years of sucking of and getting top picks, then yes, you wind up building a foundation. But that's not, I'm not going to focus on the Steelers because I'm a Browns fan. I'm going to focus on what Bill Walsh did because as I'm seeing what's going on, Hugh Jackson is following Bill Walsh's footsteps, who, of course, Bill Walsh was followed. It's funny. I mean, I'm looking at the Bill Walsh coaching tree, and the only one that's actually doing it the way Bill Walsh has done it is a person who's not a part of his coaching tree, and that was Jimmy Johnson. But again, we'll get into that. But let's take a look at what Bill Walsh did that Hugh Jackson is emulating that nobody is catching on to because they're tripping. Everybody's tripping. All right. First, before I get into this, let's understand something here. Jimmy Haslam has to have the patience of Job, as do the fans. We live in a microwave culture where we expect the new guy to win automatically. And if he doesn't, he's a bum. Get him out of here. He's the dumbest guy around. Blase, blase, boo-hoo. Take a look at not last year, but the year prior. Okay. Where, oh my God, what is that guy's name? He was the Browns' last head coach. I mean, he's just so forgettable that his name escapes me. And no, it is not the beer. But let's take a look at what he did. All right. He was a lot of fluff. He sold us on his words. Okay. Mike Pettin. Ta-da. He sold us on his words. All right. He was the 7th guy in line to take the job. If you don't hire me, I'll walk. And then Jimmy Haslam balked, and the front office balked, and they wound up hiring this guy. And he talked the talk, and he faked like he walked the walk, but he did not walk the walk. And one of the biggest mistakes he had was hiring Kyle Shanahan, to run his offense. Because the thing is, Kyle Shanahan, if he gets a head coaching job, it'll be a big mistake. It'll be a big mistake. Because look at what the Browns and the Falcons, no, take it back. Look at what happened with the Redskins in RG3's second year when everybody was they had caught up in the offseason, okay, with the read option in the NFL. They didn't spend time trying to develop RG3 into a Cam Newton style of quarterback. Like, hey, look, or Donovan McNabb even. Hey, look, learn how to read the defense. This is how you read the defense. You can't just show up to work from 9 to 5 and expect your quarterback who doesn't come from a conventional pro offense to know what the hell he's doing. You have to keep him after work, after 5 p.m. Hey, look, I'm going to help you read this defense. Okay, look, here's and you have to start them off slowly and gradually, and you have to work them into the complex stuff and really work on the complex defenses. Okay, look, this is the Ravens defense. This is what they do. This is how they confuse you. This is the Steelers defense. Let's take a look at the 89 49ers defense. All right. This is what they're doing. They're doing this. They're doing that. This is how you counter that. Look for this. This is the telltale. Look for the safety to drop. I mean, nobody sat there and did that. They just said, well, let's just do what he did best in college. That's what they did in Washington. And then by year two, when they decided, okay, well, let's make him a pocket passer, it was too late because you weren't trying to integrate football intelligence and learning how to read a defense into him. So by year three, you were out of a job. And by year four, he was all but a forgotten man on the roster. So now here he is in Cleveland because nobody bothered to sit down and teach this guy who you practically gave up a uh, franchise changing draft for. You didn't teach him, the Shanahans, on how to read a defense, how to play quarterback in the NFL. You just expected him to do it. And it doesn't work that way. You actually have to break your neck, time, sweat, energy, sleepless nights, trying to help him learn that. But that's what happens when you deal with a coach that's not really a quarterback coach, that just lays it out in front of you and think that you're supposed to be smart enough to understand it. When really your system sucks. You need to make adaptations to your system. Prime example, 2 years ago, when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator, the Browns started off the year 7-4. But then they plummeted and lost their last 5 games because Josh Gordon came back and Kyle Shanahan kept trying to force feed the ball to Josh Gordon because Josh Gordon is a great talent. But you saw he understood that in that locker room, it was garbage. It was the same plays. Everybody knew exactly what the Browns were running. Okay. Matter of fact, like some of those games, like the Houston, prime example, not the Houston game, the Tennessee game, the defense knew what the Browns were running because they kept running the same freaking plays over and over again. And Tennessee was stuffing it. Okay. And the defense was garbage. Let's be honest. The Browns won those 7 games by killing the clock with the running game. Once Mac went down, it was like, okay, well, let's try to plug somebody else in the center. It didn't work out. And you kept trying to run the same plays, thinking that Greco or McDonald could actually be up to the standards of Mac. And it didn't work simply because, not because Mac really was gone, because at that time, teams had enough tape on you to figure out that they knew what you were doing. They saw your lineup. Okay, they run it to the right. Okay, they run it to the left. If you run a bootleg, just cover these 2 guys. But in the Tennessee game, what happened was Kyle Shanahan actually had to open up the playbook and call different plays. And what happened? The Browns came back and won that game. But they didn't make any more adjustments after that. After that, it was back to running the same stuff. And when Josh Gordon came back and he was disinterested and didn't really care because he heard that the players were disgruntled with Kyle Shanahan's garbage offense, everybody in the league, the opponents were calling out the play. Oh, y'all finna run to the right. Oh, y'all finna run to the left. I mean, they already knew. Oh, here comes the bootleg. They already knew. So, of course, he's going to come back and give a half effort because he was already in communications with people. Remember, Johnny Manziel was his best friend. You think Johnny didn't know that, hey, I mean, you really think that what you see on TV is what happens on the field. You understand that a lot of those players are talking to each other. There's a lot of crosstalk going on that you can hear from the sidelines. There's a lot of, okay, I just pushed this guy out of bounds. Yeah, crosstalk. We talking to you all, man. Please, y'all mugs probably finna run the same daggone play again, except to the right side. We waiting on that. Call it. You know what I'm saying? So when he comes back, he didn't care. So we lost the last 5, and it cost Brian Hoyer his job. And don't get me wrong. Not that I thought Brian Hoyer was a great quarterback, because he's not a great quarterback. He's a serviceable backup. He is a really young version of Josh McCown. Okay? The problem is the offense was garbage. Take a look at what happened with Atlanta last year. Atlanta started off 6-0 with Kyle Shanahan's offensive coordinator. Once the teams got enough tape on them, boom, they plummeted. Oh, okay. Play action fake, throw it to Julio Jones. Run to the right, run to the left, play action fake, throw it to Julio Jones. They just doubled on Julio Jones. And it killed their offense. They stacked the box, doubled on Julio Jones. Killed the offense, killed the Falcons' offense. Flat out. Flat out. So here you are with Hugh Jackson. Okay? Hugh Jackson. And Hugh Jackson, I'm pretty sure, when he sat down in front of Jimmy Haslam, he probably told him after being in our division for what, 7 years total? Going up against the Browns and getting easy W's? Outside of that one time Hoyer beat the Bengals, when we blew them out on Thursday Night Football, it was probably like, hey, look, I know what's wrong with your team. The problem is your roster is garbage. There's a reason why you went 3-13. All of these free agents like Schwartz and Mack and Travis Benjamin, all right? And the safety, what is his name? Tayshaun Gibson, who's been hurt the past year and a half. Please get rid of these guys. They don't know how to win. They don't want to be here anyway. Get rid of all of these guys. You got way too many overpriced, overpaid, old free agents who are just here to collect a check. Yes, they make a play or two. Whitner and Dansby, they make a play or two, but you know what? Their heart's not really in it. The competitive fires come up, but they can't sustain it. They show flashes, but they're old. Cut all of these guys. Okay? Just like with Paul Kruger. Okay, you're an old veteran. You had 12 sacks 2 years ago, but that was 2 years ago. Here we are in the preseason. You can't even get pressure on the quarterback. I would rather start this young guy that got drafted last year and the guy drafted this year to back him up. I would rather have those guys rushing the passer at a cheaper price than your old ass who can't get there. What is the point in having you? Cut. Get him out of here. Justin Gilbert, I knew he wasn't going to make the team this year. I knew it. This guy, you're talking about a guy who in his rookie year was showing up late to practice. That's a player that, oh my God, get rid of. You should have cut him then. When he showed up late for practice by the third time, you should have just cut him. Just to send a message. But no responsibility whatsoever. Johnny Manziel beating up girlfriends on the side of the road. Well, he's got to show me some trust. Get the what? He's not even in football anymore. And I like Johnny Manziel coming out of college. The problem was that he was too privileged. Some of these players are freaking spoiled. They're spoiled brats, and that's Johnny's problem. He's a spoiled brat. In all honesty, somebody in that locker room needs to punch him in his mouth a few times in one setting and say, hey, get your shit together or get the hell up out of here. I'm not going to let you walk. I don't care. They can cut. Joe Thomas should have done it because they will never cut Joe Thomas. They may have traded him, which would have done him a hellacious favor. But Joe Thomas should have kicked his butt in that locker room physically. Like, don't you ever come up in here acting like you back in college. Grow up. Grow a pair. Be a man. And Ray Farmer's horrible drafting. I'm not going to draft a wide receiver, and then the wide receiver you drafted is out of football. Vince Mailey, he made the practice squad the year you drafted him. Get the hell I'm on the red. Let me take it back. Let's get back on point. Hugh Jackson is following Bill Walsh's program. We have to have Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam, who have fired coaches within a year or 2 years within their tenure, needs to chill the hell out. And I think Sashi Brown is the go-between between Hugh Jackson and Jimmy Haslam, because Sashi Brown and Paul D. Podesta believe in Hugh Jackson's plan. And Hugh Jackson's plan is coming right out of Bill Walsh's coaching tree. Because let's see who the San Francisco 49ers drafted in 1979. All right. Keep in mind, a lot of these guys didn't make the team in 79. But you're going to notice some names that actually did, who did something. Because, as I said, I was wound up being a big 49ers fan after the Browns' 1990 season. James Owens, who was garbage, they drafted him in the second round. In the third round, they took Joe Montana. Okay. Thomas Seaborn, garbage. Jerry Aldridge, garbage. Reuben Vaughn, garbage. Phil Francis, garbage. Steve Hamilton, garbage. Dwight Clark in the 10th round. Howard Ballage, garbage. And Billy McBride, garbage. But who stuck around? Okay. Montana and Clark. All right. So you got your quarterback and your wide receiver, the guys who were pretty much going to be your staples early on after 3 years. In 1980, who did the 49ers wind up drafting? Because remember, in 1979, the 49ers went 2-14. They were garbage. And they had Steve DeBerg as their quarterback. Okay? They were garbage at 2-14. The following year, they drafted Earl Cooper, running back, that 13th overall pick, won some Super Bowls. Jim Stuckey, defensive end, won some Super Bowls. Keena Turner won some Super Bowls, linebacker. Jim Miller, who cares, punter. Craig Pookie, linebacker, won some Super Bowls. Ricky Churchman didn't make it. David Hodge didn't make it. Ken Times, defensive tackle, didn't make it. Herb Williams, defensive back, didn't make it. Bobby Leopold won some Super Bowls. Dan Hartwig, backup quarterback. All right. The 49ers that year went 6-10. They inserted Montana late in the season after week 10. That he had one of the biggest NFL comebacks. Okay, in NFL history, he was down to the Saints 35-3 at halftime. 49ers wound up beating the Saints. Okay, 42-30. What? 38. It was 42. No. It was 38-9. 40. It was 41-38 at the end of the game. 49ers beat them. All right, with Joe Montana, the full start. He was ready to go. After that, he was the full-time starter. Okay. Now, in 1981, this is who they drafted because they knew. Keep in mind now, notice that most of those guys they drafted was on offense the past 2 years. I mean, 79, they only kept 2 players that was worth something. In 1980, they kept several players that was worth something. All right, half on offense, half on defense. In 81, that's when they won that Super Bowl. But who did they draft that year? Because they knew that they needed, their biggest problem was in the secondary. They realized that deficiency. In 81, 8th overall, they drafted Ronnie Lott. After that, they drafted in the second round Jim Hardy, garbage. In the second round, because they had 2 number 2 picks. After that, they drafted Eric Wright. 4 picks later, got some Super Bowl rings. Then in the third round, okay, third round, they drafted Carlton Williamson, got some Super Bowl rings. In the fifth round, because they didn't have a fourth round pick, they drafted Lynn Thomas, had some Super Bowl rings. Then also in the fifth round, they drafted Arlington Jones, who was a kick returner, garbage. In the sixth round, Pete Kugler, defensive tackle, got some Super Bowl rings. Then after that, Gary White, garbage. Ron DeBose, he was there. He got a Super Bowl ring, but he was a backup. Marjorie Ogilvy, garbage, and Joe Adams, garbage. Okay, so but their franchise had been set. Okay, they had been set. Do you understand? They had been set, and then to reinforce everything that they did, the 1986 draft, because they had won after that. They won the Super Bowl in 1981, okay, and they won it again in '84. But they were struggling. They knew they had to replace a lot of players. And then came the draft that set them apart, where they won the next two Super Bowls, which was the 1986 draft, where they drafted Larry Roberts from Alabama, Tom Brathman, the fullback, Tim McKyer, the defensive back, John Taylor, wide receiver, Charles Haley, defensive end, Steve Wallace, okay, the left tackle, Kevin Fagan, defensive end, Pat Miller, who was garbage, but Don Griffin, defensive back, Jim Pop, who was garbage, tight end, Don Cherry, running back, garbage, Ellison Stinson, wide receiver, garbage, and Harold Hamilton, linebacker, garbage. But a lot of those guys helped them win Super Bowls in '88 and '89. Do you understand? So they had a lot of draft picks, and they worked on their homegrown talent. They hit on a lot of players and missed on a lot. But the whole thing was you had to scrap the whole roster and start off with players who learned how to play your way. Now, let's take it to the Cowboys. Because do understand, Bill Walsh needed players who were going to play his way. He had to revamp that whole roster. Now, not saying Cody Kessler is Joe Montana. That guy is garbage. I don't even know why they kept him on the team. Probably because he was a draft pick and Hugh Jackson put himself out there for that guy. But Cody Kessler is crap. I don't see him making it in 2018. I don't think he'll be on the roster. But it is what it is. I think Robert Griffin III under Hugh Jackson, who is a quarterback's coach, that was where he cut his teeth. I think he can get Robert Griffin to learn how to read a defense. He just has to put in the work. Now, let's take it to the Dallas Cowboys, who built a dynasty that really, if their owner, who hadn't pulled a Jimmy Haslam, talking about hey, who owns the Cowboys right now? I cannot think of that old man's name. God, he gets on my nerves. Excuse me, this one I can attribute to the beer. But he is the Al Davis of the NFC. Oh. Anyway, if he wouldn't have fired Jimmy Johnson after they won the second Super Bowl, because he was mad because Jimmy Johnson didn't invite him to the Super Bowl celebration party, all right, Jerry Jones, the Cowboys really should have won 5 Super Bowls instead of just 3. But look, let's see what happened. Right after Jerry Jones fired Tom Landry and he hired Jimmy Johnson. Okay. Remember, they traded Herschel Walker for all those picks to Minnesota, picks and players. But a lot of those players didn't pan out. But let's take a look at what he drafted in '89 as far as building this dynasty. Troy Aikman was his #1 pick, #1 overall. Then he took Steve Wisniewski, offensive guard, possible Hall of Famer. Then he took in the second round of fullback in Daryl Johnson. So two second round picks 10 picks apart. He took a quarterback, offensive guard, and a running back. Then in the third round, he took Mark Stepnoski, a center. Then in the third round again, okay, 9 picks later, Randy Weston, who didn't work out. But then in the fourth round, he took Tony Tolbert, who kind of worked out. And then in the fifth round, with 3 picks, he took Keith Jennings, who no, Willis Crockett, no, Jeff Roth, no. But then in the seventh round, Kelvin Peterson, no. In the eighth round, Chavez Foger, no. Ninth round, Tim Jackson, no. Then 10th round, Rod Carter, no. 11th round, Randy Shannon, no. In 12th round, Scott Ankrum, no. But his core was set with Aikman, Wisniewski, Johnson, and Stepnoski. You understand? And the Cowboys went 1-15 that year. But he had his core. All right. He had his quarterback, his offensive line, and a fullback. But he had to rebuild the whole team. Keep in mind, he had to scrap all of those old players and start off fresh. You have to see what guys do. Now, in 1990, what he did was, with only 5 picks, his number 1 pick overall, 17th overall, was Emmitt Smith. All right. Then in the second round, he took Alexander Wright, who wound up being a good slot receiver. Then he took Jimmy Jones in the third round, who was all right. Then in the ninth round, he took Kenneth Gant, who, of course, stayed on and got a couple of Super Bowls. And then Dave Harper, who in the 11th round, who was cut. But in 91, this is where he really set the team. Do you understand? This is where he really set the team, because he wound up getting the number 1 overall pick. All right, he had 3 number one picks, and this is what he picked: number 1 overall, Russell Maryland, who wound up being a pretty good pass rusher, run stopper. Then he took Alvin Harper, 12th overall, and we all know Alvin Harper beat the 49ers deep on a lot of plays. Then he took Kelvin Pritchett, defensive tackle, who was garbage. And then in the second round, he took Dixon Edwards, a linebacker, all right, who was a pretty solid player. Then he took in the third round Godfrey Miles, a linebacker, who was okay. Then in the third round, he took James Richard, who was garbage, and Eric Williams, who wound up being a hellacious offensive tackle, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Then in the fourth round, with 4 picks, he took Kirby Richards, garbage, Bill Musgrave, who was garbage, Tony Hill, who was okay, and then Kelvin Harris, defensive end, who was garbage. In the fifth round, Derek Brownlow, garbage. Sixth round, Mike Sullivan, offensive guard, garbage. But in the seventh round, he got Leon Lett, Mr. Fumble in the Snow with Miami, okay? Mr. Scoop up a fumble in the Super Bowl, but got it slapped out of his hands right before he crossed the goal line. Leon Lett. But Leon Lett was a hellacious pass rusher. Okay? Then in the ninth round, Damon Mays, garbage. 10th round, Sean Love, offensive guard, garbage. 11th round, Tony Bowles, garbage. And in the 12th round, Larry Brown, who wound up getting 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl against the Steelers. Okay? So, I mean, sometimes there's some late round gems. In 92, though, do understand that 92 is the year that the Cowboys won their first Super Bowl over the 49ers. And who did they take? They took Kevin Smith, defensive back, all right, 17th overall. Robert Jones, linebacker, in the first round, 24th overall. Then Jimmy Smith, wide receiver, garbage. But second round, 37th overall, Darren Woodson. Okay? I'm going to skip a lot of these guys because a lot of these guys are garbage. Oh, my God. After that, it was nothing but garbage. Clayton Holmes, James Brown, Tom Minisky, Greg Briggs, Rob Milstead, Fallon Casey, Nate Kirkman, Chris Hall, John. But anyway, what happened was he went ahead through the draft, kept building up his team. All right, through the draft, he kept building the team, kept adding pieces and players. I mean, you're going to have deficiencies in certain spots, but the thing is, you mask the deficiencies by having primetime players at critical spots, and boom, you get them, you get those players, and then you just mask the holes and you win the games with great coaching. Jimmy Johnson learned from Bill Walsh. All right. Hugh Jackson is learning from Jimmy Johnson and Bill Walsh. You have to destroy the roster, cut the roster, get rid of all of the old, overpriced veterans and free agents who really aren't producing, who are just there to collect a check. Start new. Start with young guys who are hungry, who just want to win. All right, who playing on a rookie minimum. All right, or a veteran minimum, who just want to win. You start from there. Bill Belichick did the same thing. Got rid of all the overpriced free agents, overpriced players, and started fresh. Guys who just want to win, who are hungry to win. All right? That's how you do it. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Browns offensively this year will be quite exciting. But the following year, this year, I put it like this. This year is going to be, like I said, offensively quite exciting, but defensively, they're going to get their butts kicked. Plain and simple. But next year, you spent the Browns' weaknesses this year already, as we can see, is defensive line and secondary. You spend, because I don't really think Danny Shelton can play. Danny Shelton is going on the second year, and this guy still does not know how to play nose tackle at the NFL level. He still plays it like he's in college, where here he is 300-something pounds going up against a 255-pound guy where he can shove back and do whatever and whatnot. He still thinks he's in college. No, dude, the offensive lineman, the center, is just as big as you and stronger than you. You need to learn leverage. He's not doing that. All right, which means that they'll probably wind up getting rid of him too. And Cam Irving needs to work on his snaps, and you can work on snaps, but you can't. Danny Shelton, come on, get your head out of your ass. You're too immature to be making the mistakes that you're making. You need to smarten up and grow up quickly. Get the leverage. Get your ass down. Get down there. Work your leverage. It's too late in the game for you to still be making the same mistakes. They will get rid of you. And I don't think if he doesn't take to the teachings of Ray Horton and the defensive line coach, he's not going to be there long. And I really think the Browns are next year, they're going to spend their draft picks on the defensive line and the secondary, more so the secondary, especially the safety positions and the backup corners. What they did to K'Waun Williams was some garbage. You never should have let that guy go. You should have mended business. The Browns were wrong in that situation. They owe K'Waun Williams an apology or whatnot, but then he's never going to get it. It's too late. But they were wrong in that situation. But at any rate, you need to work on your secondary. You need to work on your defensive line. You do that. You do that next draft, and then by year 3, after those guys have gotten their feet wet and have cut their teeth out there, then by year 3, okay, let's now play on a competitive level. So this year, I see, based on just football analogy, 4.5 wins. I would take the under. Okay. Next year, if they do exactly what I said they are, I can see them going maybe 6-10, 7-9, but being really close, like missing games, like he missed the field goal, or if only that safety would just miss slapping that ball away. Okay, the rookie safety. But by year 4, That's when you'll really see the Browns playing competitive football. Year 4, I guarantee it. Only if, okay, Browns owners, Jimmy Haslam, just sit back, sit in the press box, and understand that, hey, look, it is growing pains. It's going to be a process. Ignore the fans, ignore the media, ignore the outside noise. Let Sashi Brown, Paul D. Podesta, then Hugh Jackson do all the talking. Because they already explained to you, hey, look, we're starting off young. First year and second year are a teaching year. Third year is, hey, look, show me what you got. In fourth year, that's when the light bulb cuts on for these players. Really, it cuts on for year 3, but it'll do that with your offensive player, but your defensive players, that light bulb has to click on by year 2. By year 3, year 4 with your offense, and year 3 of your defense, that's when you made your core, you're re-signing offensive players, okay, and your defensive rookies, because Nasib and Agba and Schobert and Scooby Wright, those guys can play. They can play. You'll be looking for a new corner to replace Joe Hayden by then, because you'll probably have been ready to trade him. Okay? Which I think you should have traded him this offseason. You'll be also looking for a new left tackle. So you'll probably have traded I forgot his name. Joe Thomas. All right. These are things you have to work on. You have to keep replenishing that roster. You got a lot of old players who are starting to slow down within the next 2-3 years. But those building blocks, you'll have the draft picks in place, and you can keep it going. You just trade these guys. You'll find another Philadelphia sucker who will give you a first-round pick as a bad team for a player that's past their prime that they think can help them, and you build from there. So I really think that the Browns, I think they're in good shape. I don't expect them to win too many games this year. I don't expect them to win too many games next year. But by year 3, I expect to see some progress, some serious progress on both sides of the ball. I expect to see progress on offense this year, but not on defense. Defense is going to be atrocious. Offense is going to be exciting. Year 2, I expect the defense to be worked on and show some promise. Year 3, I expect the defense to really be there. Okay, here we go. And then by year 4, if they stay the course, if Jimmy Haslam can calm the hell down, I expect the Browns by year 4 to be a playoff contender, because a lot of the teams in the AFC North are dropping. You really think that the Steelers, Bengals, and Ravens will still be at the class of the division? No, not within 4 years. Their quarterbacks will be old and be ready to retire. A lot of their core players will be ready to retire. It will be the decade of the Browns. I'm telling you, 2020 on will be to 2030 will be the decade of the Browns if they just stay the course. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. People just have to be optimistic. They have to be patient, and they have to understand that you're not going to win every single game for the next two and a half years, but you will be competitive by year 3. All right, that's all I have to say. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be a rough season this year, rough 2 seasons, but we just have to hang in there. Okay. All right, y'all. Roo roo. Dog pound for life. Peace.